Geraldine, I'd like to welcome you to In Conversation with Breaking the Silence. Thanks for making yourself available to do this show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You bet. I don't know how much you know about our channel, but we've been going for about almost 2 years now. And our channel has always been about serving the community and working with experiencers and allowing them a safe place to be to tell their stories. Not all of them do, as you know, 90% of them do not want to go on camera, but they will give us stories anonymously, and many more will actually come in front of the camera. Everybody from Whitley to Deborah Cobble, who's going to be our next film, where she tells her story based on the Intruder's Experience book. And so we don't interview people. We allow them to just talk to the camera like you're in the room with them and tell their story. And we don't edit it and we don't steer the narrative. As a result, it's made our channel very popular with the experiencer community, not so popular with the people looking for entertainment and Hollywood wows. So I'm sure you get that.
Yes.
How did you start? How did you start with all of this? Or where did you begin? I know you're an experiencer, and that obviously led you uh, to get involved with your work doing hypnotherapy and working with experiencers. But where did this all begin for you?
Well, I come from a very spiritual family, so I've been meditating since I was very young. But I'm an experiencer since I was a child, but I didn't know that they were experiences in the way that we talk about them until much later in 2013. And in 2013, I had a conscious contact experience, and it completely transformed my life because it activated in me psychic abilities, which changed my perception of everything. And that's kind of how 5 years after that, I really started to deep dive into the work and research and dedicate my life to this, much like you, to focus and share and teach and help those that are kind of going through those awakenings, those kinds of experiences as well.
Do you feel that you were sort of put on a program or put on a mission to do this by the visitors that you're interacting with?
I feel it's something much, much higher than that. I feel that, we are we're kind of creating our reality as we go, but some of us
Mhm.
are more, let's say, helped or designed genetically to bring that information. They have it more readily available to them to share, and create an impact with the information. So, I mean, if you're looking at my life story since the beginning, contact experience since I was 5 years old, I was pretty much interacting with these things since very early on. It was
Mhm.
just learning what it was and putting a language to it that, changes. Yeah.
Do you have any feelings about being involved in this before you were 5 years old? Because many of us do. I mean, I do, definitely.
Exactly. Well, I believe that we are very much, not only believe, but I see holographically in our genetic lineages that we hold ancestral memory of our star brothers. You can call them star brothers and sisters. I think that it's something that runs down the bloodlines, and the information emerges as we kind of shift frequency. As we wake up, let's say, waking up means becoming more aware outside
Hmm.
matrix construct conditioning. You start to remember past life memories, childhood memories, and in between those is many of this kind of phenomena and this memory that we are more than just human. So, beyond, we are everything, really. So I think that that's something that collectively it's a human memory that is available to everyone at some point.
That certainly would explain a lot. I mean, it runs in my family, and especially on my grandfather's side. My dad's mother, my grandmother, and
Mhm.
she was a total skeptic. She thought all this stuff was just BS. I mean, it's real clear if you watch my film how she felt. But my grandfather, on the other hand, being Irish and being from Ireland, he was heavily involved. And on my mother's side, my mother was too, but she didn't tell me till the very end. So, uh,
Mhm.
of her life that she came clean with me, where she'd been kind of hiding it from me or protecting me from it all her life.
Yeah. I think that's the case with a lot of families. I think, and just like mine, I mean, I had so many experiences since I was a child, but it wasn't until it happened to me consciously that I shared it with my parents. And it turns out they've had experiences all their lives, but we've never talked about it before that moment. And it was shocking to me. I thought that I would be the crazy one, and
Yeah,
in fact, they were the ones having experiences since they were kids. My grandparents, they talked about it, had sightings. So it was nothing new to them, which was nice. But
yeah,
it goes
very
to
nice.
show, yeah, it goes to show that a lot of us have these experiences. We just don't know. We don't have permission. We don't know that we have the permission to talk about it and be open. You know.
Yeah, I was warned at an early age when I was a child, and they were coming so often. From the time I was 6 years old, I clearly remember it on up till 10, 11, 12, even when I got into grammar school. And I was always told not to talk about it. And it wasn't devious in any way. It was because they were just trying to protect me. They knew what would happen if I did talk about it. So I didn't.
Right. Same.
I I expressed an interest in UFOs, and boy, did I! And I was seeing them all the time, and but I didn't talk about the next level, and I don't even think I realized that that next level by the time I was 12, 13 years old was real. That when I look back, it was maybe I was just having a good imagination about the people that came in the night. Can you tell us about that first experience you had that really set this all in motion?
So my first conscious experience,
Hmm.
or going back to my childhood.
Yeah, your first contact. You said at 5 years old, I think it was, or
Yeah, so my first experience was when I was 5, but my first fully conscious, whole memory is when I was in 2013.
okay.
So, when I was 5, I had a plane just playing in my parents' bedroom in front of a big mirror, those mirror closets, and looking over the pool. A white light emerges from the pool and hovers over the balcony. And next thing I know, the white light becomes so strong, and I'm drawn to the light. So I walk towards the window, and then I have missing time from that moment. I feel myself, and I see that I'm walking into the light and then into a room, a big white room, and then everything goes blank. And then the next moment I regain my consciousness, I'm in my crib, standing up on the edge of the crib, looking out into the darkness, and just wondering how everything went from such white light into such darkness. I wasn't scared or anything, but I knew that something had happened. And looking back at that time, my parents don't remember putting me to bed. They don't remember, anything during that time from the moment I was playing until that moment of waking up in the bed. Um, so that was the first experience. And then after that, many, many different kinds of not only dreams of beings, strange beings that are formless, white lights coming and communicating with me, touching my forehead, touching my belly. At the age of 16, I lived in South America a couple of years to learn Spanish. And
Hmm.
one night I was walking after school, teaching. I was teaching English too, walking down, and the cobblestone and everything turned black. And again, I had missing time. I just walked into the darkness, and next thing I know, at 3 in the morning, I'm waking up in my bed for the first time, regaining consciousness and realizing that I had been somewhere else. Nobody saw me come home. Nobody remembers. But the dreams and the vividness of those experiences were incredible. And that's when I experienced the first time having these kinds of anomalous pregnancy at the age of 16, where I became ill as if I was pregnant and went to the doctor. The doctor discovered that it looked like I had already been pregnant, already had children, but I was still a virgin. And then after experiencing the sickness for 3, 4 weeks, I have a dream where this white light enters, touches my forehead, and then everything is completely back to normal. And but at the same time, again, you don't know that these are. You don't use the word interdimensional or extraterrestrial or alien
Hmm.
or any of this kind of terminology. It's just white lights. It could be angelic beings at most. This is my mind. It happened again a couple times in my life, becoming anomalously pregnant. And in addition to having those symptoms of pregnancy and the dreams of being taken on board somewhere, but also having extraction memories of visions of something being removed,
Hmm.
but not sure what. And then having the pregnancies, and then the doctor not knowing like where the pregnancy went after a month or 2 months. So that happened to me, and that was shocking. But medically, I was completely dependent on medical doctors to explain what happened. And they were telling me, it's just a blighted ovum, or your body reabsorbed the pregnancy, or it's stress or anxiety, things like this. So, you just say, okay, means it could make sense. You don't think anything else of it. But it wasn't until 2013 that I went into retreat for about 4 or 5 months, and I was meditating day and night, up to 9 hours a day, because my partner had passed away a few years before then. I was going through major life transitions, and I had some deep, deep unanswered questions about the nature of life, of love, of creation. I had so many deep questions, and I wasn't finding those answers. So I went into this meditation to look at my own emotional history, looking at my ancestral history. And that's when I began to uncover the layers that there is something beyond just humans that are participating in our reality, and
Hmm.
something more that is participating in the creation of the construct that we call the matrix, or this environment that we live in. And that's when things started to change. And one night in October in 2013, I was waken up by an incredibly bright light in my room. It's like you can see the blood vessels through your eyes, and you open your eyes and the entire room is filled with white light, but my blinds are closed. I look down at my phone. It's exactly 3:33 in the morning, and that was the first time I had seen those kind of consecutive numbers or noticed them. So I put the phone down, I wait a little bit, I walk over to the window, and I pull the blinds down to look, and the white light becomes so bright. I'm trying to look beyond there, trying to see what is there. And next thing I know, my body feels paralyzed, and I'm being drawn. I feel my body just dissolving through the wall, through the window. I can hear it. It's a very strange experience. And then appearing again, back together again on the other side of my window on top of my garage. And it was just incredible. I don't know how much in depth you want me to go into it. Uh,
No, you're doing fine, and I'm hearing so much stuff that's so familiar. Everything from the blackness to um, the pregnancies. I hear this so often, but I mean, myself, I've experienced that black. You wake up and you can't see anything, and then you question whether you're blind or not. That really caught my attention. But the details you're going into are very important because people watching this show need to hear this. There's a lot of them sitting in the dark right now and feel so alone with this, but when they hear this, what you're describing, they have kept to themselves and they're hearing someone else talk about it for the first time. And every single experiencer has a bit more to add to this overall experience with their own personal narrative from their own experience that I think is very, very important. Um, the way you described going to the window and parting the blinds, I remember it's you see it in my movie, but something is there. How I saw the lights in my room, and then I tried to peek over the window to see where they were coming from, and that's when the lights reacted to me as if they knew they had found me or they saw me. Ooh, there he is! And I remember this little chill I got, and I started to feel a little scared, not real bad, but I was still really curious. And then I went and hid, and but the lights got in the room. So you're describing and paralleling myself and so many other people, and you know this, but I don't think it can be said enough. So uh, don't feel that you need to hold back from anything that you feel is important to describe from your experience.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so essentially, once I was on the other side from this white light, which it seemed to appear like a craft that would be moving in and out of form, and it was like a metal light. That's how I can describe it, like a plasma
Hmm.
metallic substance. And from the light emerges these six little lines that then manifest into a form as they come closer out of the light. And one of these beings approaches me, and it is a tall 7 foot gray. And it's just I till today I can see so clearly the ridges of his skin, his nose, his eyes so clearly, but everything on his body was just something complete that I've never ever even could possibly imagine. um, and this being with large eyes, with large black eyes, and basically he or she, they not really have any sex, they raise the hand and telepathically says calm. And at that moment I'm terrified, and from 1 second to the next all of my fear just gone from the body, just complete peace and fine. And I realize I'm humbled by such power that this being has, like such incredible intelligence. And I never at any moment felt afraid after that, because I understood that there was such a powerful intelligence, and I felt kind of, it was understood that I was going to be okay. And I walk on board the craft, and I'm being directed on board the craft, which is kind of lenticular, as I mentioned. So we go on towards the left side, and the craft is very conscious. It is responding to me, just like you say, the lights respond to you. As soon as I step on board the craft and I can feel the metal plasma or whatever technology that is, my entire body responds to it, and the craft responds to me. And I just enter and walk in. The most beautiful technology I've ever seen. And they create kind of like a hologram to cover, for some reason, where I'm going. But at the same time, the hologram has a little path that I'm meant to follow. And I follow along in the hologram. And clearly, they're not trying to hide that it's a hologram, because they clearly disappear into the hologram, into another direction. And I'm being guided to that little path into a holographic room. And as I turn around, I see two tall grays and my aunt in her nightgown, completely unconscious, with her hair as if gliding, not necessarily in charge of her movement, but moving directly in front of me. And I tried to call out to her. I cannot call out to her, and she just disappears into the hologram. And I'm confused as to why she's there. Everything disappears. The hologram disappears. And now I'm seeing the room that was kind of being concealed from me. And kind of like a control room of some kind that has a beautiful oval console with blue holographic planets and stars, and it looks like some measurement of numbers, some incredible hologram. It looked like a navigation, as if it would be some kind of navigation table. And beyond that, I can see through the craft, through this metal, I can see the stars beyond there, actually to both sides of me. And as I'm looking to the right, the left, I'm seeing three smaller grays holding a holographic prism with 8 layers. This cube with 8 layers, this holographic blue cube. And yeah, so then from there, they begin to show me all kinds of information. From the first layer emerges this incredible alien language that is just the most complex thing I've ever seen. I mean, I've researched so many different ancient symbolic languages, cannot find anything near it. The only thing I can perhaps say is a combination of maybe cuneiform with physics equations, mathematical, very, very advanced mathematical equations. Every dot represents millions of concepts, and the way that they communicate is in universes. And the more I would try to make out the words, the less I would understand, but the more I would relax and just allow it to pass, I would get images of what I was watching. So it was also telepathic language, which is strange. It's like reading telepathically. I would receive the images in my mind. And that's how I understood that the way that they spoke was in universes. And that was mind blowing to me. So the language leaves. Sorry, did you want to say that? Yeah. And they next, from the next layer, there's 7 little planets, seven little lights, and those create the constellation of the Pleiadian constellation. And since I was a child, I had this incredible connection to the Pleiades before I even knew the name. My mother would call it the Seven Sisters.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, they
Hmm.
used to call it in South America also, so it's known as that. And I would pray to that, and I would say, Mother of Aquarius, please protect me. I don't know why. I just prayed that when I was a child all the time, looking at the Pleiadian constellation. So next thing I know is that they focus on the planet Maya, and the next thing I know, we are traveling there. How do I know we're traveling? Because the translucence of this craft begins to shift in colors and movement. I can feel movement of some kind. And we end up on this planet, Maya. And I am taken out of the planet. We get down here on the planet Maya, and I am being shown six Pleiadian beings, a very tall, white robes, white long hair, blue eyes, green eyes, magnificent color eyes, completely different beings, very pale skin. And they're telling me that I am one of those Pleiadians. I am one of those elder men that was in that group there. And I didn't quite understand what that meant, but telepathically I'm understanding the images of his life and my life and the cross section of that. And then we go back on the craft and we're taken to another timeline in the Pleiades, where they show me again, now as a female Pleiadian, speaking to crowds of thousands of Pleiadians in a valley. And I'm explaining something about, I don't know, maybe, I guess in our world, it's like spiritual science, something like this. This is kind of like how, but it's natural for them. It's not something special or unique. Um, and the communication is telepathic. And I guess basically they're showing me what I have done and am doing in different parallel lifetimes. So they remove this, we go back into the craft, and the next layer in the craft now is 8 little lights. And from the 8 little lights manifests four children that are just beautiful. They are between 5, 6, 7, and 16. And the first one is a little boy, beautiful boy with curly hair. The second one is a blonde little girl with these incredible giant eyes, the pupils the size of our ocular socket, and this little child was in my dream, reoccurring dream as a child, where from a white light, my mother would come from the white light holding the hand of this child, and she would present it to me. And I would have the same dream over and over again from the age of 6 up until the age of maybe 8 or 9 years old, all the time. And I thought when I was a child this would be an older sister. Maybe my mom would get divorced and marry someone else and have this child, or maybe it would be my child. So when I saw the child, it was instant recognition, and looking at the eyes of the child was immediate telepathic communication. They knew everything about me, and I could telepathically see what they were thinking and what they knew about me. And they knew that this was just a connection, like an imprint. It was an emotional imprint of some kind, an exchange. And they were not emotional at all. But of course, I got very emotional because instantly I began to recover the memories of all the times I had been with each of them, holding them. I just have this vivid memory of myself looking down at the child, and one time being on a metallic operating table where something is being taken out of me, and all these memories start to come back. And it was just shocking because I said, where on earth was your head like last week, where you can't remember that you had these children? How is it possible that you're so unconscious that you don't know that you've had these experiences? And I thought, okay, I'm going to leave my human life and I will be here, take care of them. And right as I was thinking that, they removed them from the room. The other four lights were just taken out. They didn't show me that. Um, but then they asked me, why are you suffering? Because I began to cry. I became very emotional.
Oh,
And
of course. That's extremely emotional.
yes, um, and they asked me, why are you suffering? They didn't understand why I was in so much pain. they're like, "Don't you understand?" Telepathically, they say this to me, and they begin to show me a tulip and show me the molecular structure of the tulip. They show me the molecular structure of a human and the difference between that, the vibrational frequency of a human and matter, and an object like cement, and then a plant. And I began to understand the interconnectivity of bioelectrical fields. I mean, in an instant, this is being um, shown to me, I guess. And at one moment, they show me many different scenes of human history, and the connection between the emotions and humans, and evolution. And the next moment, I'm inside of a holographic construct of the Orion Nebula. And
Mm.
um, for the first time in my life, I am aware. I can see the planet Earth, and I can see myself on planet Earth. I can see my family, my life, what I did last week. And then I can see myself on the Pleiades in those two timelines at the same time. And then I can see myself on board the craft. And then I realize how we are fractalized, and we exist simultaneously in many different timelines. And I experienced the most incredible peace I've ever been able to reach in my entire life. And I understood that, everything was fine at that moment. Um, Next thing I know, I am opening my eyes and I'm upside down on my bed when I'm regaining consciousness, coming to. And I grab my phone and I start to call the hospital. I start to call the police. I'm very confused. I'm not sure what happened to me. I'm not sure who I should call for support to get the kids back. This is my human mind. Um,
Mm.
and then, of course, after a while, I realized how insane it would sound for me to say what I wanted to say on the phone. So I hang up, and I had little burn marks over here, like a crust, like when you get a sunburn, uh, and it's healing. And my feet were dirty, as if I had just gone outside. And, from that moment, I was tired. I was exhausted. So I slept the entire night until the next day, Sunday. So Friday, this happens Friday night, Saturday, all the way to Sunday. Sunday, I call my parents, let them know what happens. That's when we had that exchange. But I still didn't know what was going to happen, because Monday, when I go to work and I'm in front of my meditation student, my gosh, I can see nothing but a gigantic field of light. I can feel her emotions, see her thoughts, what she had for breakfast, what she's doing in court that day after our class. And I began to realize, wow, something really did happen. That was really the first time that I realized that it wasn't just an intense dream or a lucid dream. This was a whole nother level. But essentially, it activated my abilities to the point where I couldn't leave my house for 3 months after that. So, yeah, it changed my life from that moment forward.
Wow, that's amazing. I know about how you feel after experiences like that, and I know about the last time I experienced something that I can't remember. It's like it's being blocked from me, and that's unusual. But that's not the real story. Thursday night, it happens. I wake up Friday. I just feel so exhausted, and I'm so out of it, and I'm so detached from my own reality that it took me all the way to the following Thursday before I started to be able to feel like I could
Mm.
connect with everything in this reality again to a point where I could get on with business as usual. Um, so I know how that can be, and I'm sure many people listening and watching this now will relate to that. Um, it's interesting your description of going through the blinds and feeling like you were reassembled on the other side, because more recently, the information that's come forward from various sources, including my own, seem to suggest that, as crazy as it sounds, and it all sounds crazy, at least to the outside, but even that little skeptical part of yourself, is that it's like the transporter in Star Trek. They literally are taking you apart on a molecular level and reassembling you, which is something that science uh, didn't take very seriously until more recently. We were making experiments now, and we're starting on a very primitive level to be able to do such things, but not anywhere near as sophisticated as transporting a human being from one place to another using that technology. And that technology is really light.
Hmm.
Everything that seems to me that they're working with for healing, for experiences, for holography, everything is around light, but their light is different somehow. It has life to it. It has substance to it. It can feel thick. Um, and you're describing this stuff, and so it's my mind sort of whirling, going, "Oh boy, look, listen to that! Isn't that something?" Because that's how I've been feeling about things. Um, So, with all these abilities activated in you, you decided to move forward into doing work um, with people who have these experiences.
Yes, yes, and that took a few years before I decided to do that, because much like you, my partner at the time, my new partner that I just met at that time, was telling me, don't think about talking about these things. I had a very high-end event planning company. I was doing, $1 million weddings and things like this, and some of my work was getting published. And they would say, don't talk about this. They're going to think you're crazy. You're going to lose your business. So, I just kept it inside, but I was like living a double life. And I think up
Hmm.
until maybe the fifth year, when by 2017, I decided to get hypnotherapy for the first time. I went to the MUFON support group, and that's when I met many other women that were actually meeting women that were having these many, and men that were having these experiences. That changed my life, because I understood, and I'm definitely not the only one. And why on earth is no one talking about the idea that we're having experiences, interdimensional experiences, where we might be having children? What does that mean about who we are as human people? What does that mean about the soul? It's a very serious thing, and I'm not understanding why no one was talking about it.
Hmm.
So,
Well, we met you in 2018. You came to our studio. Jimmy Church was there, Yvonne Smith, and Whitley Strieber, and a lot of the people, because I had done a bunch of art on my experiences and on the grays. And that was the first time we met you. So you were at that time very new to this still.
yes, very new. But
Yeah.
your artwork was incredible and just amazing. I felt so at home in your studio that, your work is amazing, Steve.
Thank you.
So, yeah, it was just beautiful to meet people that are already, in the field, not afraid to explore. And that's important for everyone, because you see, right now, for a lot of us, this is like a fringe topic. But in
Yeah.
reality, this is going to be, in the coming years, it's going to be the norm. It's going to be something that we must talk about, because disclosure is definitely coming for many various reasons you don't really have to talk about now, but a lot of political reasons, a lot of different reasons. But inevitable is the fact that we are multidimensional, and that the mastery of our energy, of our life force, is really the key to the navigation, both in the physical realm and the interdimensional, in our dream state. Our dream state is not just a random experience in which we're just venting our life experiences, and it comes to a point where we're really accessing other dimensional planes in which we exist simultaneously. So there's a lot of things that we're learning. We're a very young race, human race, and part of our evolutionary process is to understand that these experiences are a natural part, and that the mastery and the letting go of fears and the fear of the unknown is actually the key to the power of human creation,
Oh, yes.
and free will, because there are many parasitic systems as well, right, in these realms. If you're very unconscious or very fearful, you can fall into a lot of parasitic experiences that are not fun. And I've been there. Also experienced military things, been there.
Hmm.
But again, what I've learned through all of this is that we have absolute free will, and that as soon as we start to understand what this is all about, we have the ability to master and connect with our hybrid children, understand what that means. There's a very profound meaning behind this. And the humans that remember their contact and their creation of hybrids, they have very activated memory, which is essentially activated DNA. This is where I began to uncover all this information based on my research. So in 2017, after I had my hypnotherapy, I downloaded all kinds of information about the origins of mankind, the seeding of life on this earth, and how essentially we are potentially hybrids. We ourselves are hybrids. And this is where I came up with the concept of holographic DNA, in that through the morphogenetic field, we hold the memory of the history of contact down our bloodline. And in fact, our planet Earth perhaps is self-organized in a way that we are sustaining these bloodlines of many different species. And we have that, and we experience them in dream state, because in dream state is where we get to navigate these memories of our DNA, essentially. And we have a lot of work to do in those dream states. So yeah, so changed my life, sold my business, ended my partnership, and dedicated myself to doing this work, because it's more than just, oh, we're having ET contact experience. This is talking about really understanding all the ancient information that's been suppressed about humanity, of the power of the human, for many centuries, our creative life force, and what that means. So yeah, that's where we are today.
Yeah, well, it's so true that that has been kept from us by people who do not mean well, and the only thing that to them is meaning well is keeping power and control over us and keeping us blind and keeping us in the dark. They know full well what human potential can be,
Exactly.
uh, because we're consciousness first, we're physical second, and if we realize that and we lose our fear, then we'll have access to telepathy and all kinds of stuff. I mean, one of the things that Susie Hansen describes in her book, and I know about this, is about how the Greys have what she calls a light elevator, which is the bright beam of light that if it hits you, you become uh, free. You feel free fall. There's no force of gravity on you, and you're very easily lifted up. But when they don't have access to that, they can literally just put their arms around you or be near you, and their field will encompass you, and they can lift you that way because they know how to defy gravity themselves, which is why sometimes you see them gliding rather than walking. Um, and I remember this really very well. I know all about the light beam and how that feels, because one time when one appeared on the side of my house at night, I just couldn't resist walking into it. I was fully conscious, and I walked into it and immediately just felt light, and I started to float up, and it was the most amazing feeling. But then on another night, when I found myself across the street from my house, standing under a street light in the middle of the night in my t-shirt and underwear, and that scared me, because the first thing I thought of is, what if the police come by? I have no ID. I'm standing out here half naked. And that's when one of the Greys, who was cloaked in black, came at me and grabbed me and put her arms around me. And we went straight up. And I remember looking up under the belly of one of the craft and
Yeah.
this light appearing, which was like a doorway or something, or a hole in the craft, which we went through. Um, those kinds of things, they tell me and tell us we'll be able to do that. We did have these abilities at one time, um, and that if we reconnect and we lose our fear and we learn, and meditation is so important, and turning off the mind and turning off the noise and connecting with the spirit that we are, that's where it all lies.
Hmm. Yeah.
So so
Exactly.
I absolutely agree with your findings.
Yes, thank you. It's beautiful. I What I discovered is, like, the deeper you go down the rabbit hole of spirituality, you're going to be met with consciousness, and you're also going to be met with this interdimensional awareness. And the deeper you go down the rabbit hole of science, you're also going to be met with
Yeah.
spirituality and consciousness. So, it's necessary for us now to merge these two, to understand that they've never been separate. Actually, it's just these powers that be that have made us perceive them as separate. to confuse, So
There are people in the scientific community that um, absolutely know about this,
yeah.
and it's a real fight because so many people, certain noted scientists, I will not mention their names, just dig their heels in against it, as they always have
Mhm.
forever. I mean, real scientists are understanding that the spiritual realm and the materialism level um, are part of each other. They're very important. They're really not separated at all. So you're absolutely right about that. And so you all this came out of your experience and how your interaction with the visitors opened all this up in you. I've read book after book and met person after person. I mean, I started going to Yvonne in 1994. The light bulb came on in 87 when I read Whitley's book. And then later I met him and we became friends. And it just kind of just opened up from there. And, I have heard over and over again the same realizations as people evolve through their experience. Whereas Deborah Cobble, as an example, started off with her experience in '83. That's the one they turned into a two-part special uh, for national television called The Intruders. Bud Hopkins was very involved in that uh, and brought her story to the public. But if you read her book, she starts off afraid, confused, but fascinated. In other words, the fear wasn't so strong that she couldn't keep from being fascinated by what was happening to her and how amazing and crazy it was. By the time you get to the end of the book, she's talking about the same things you and I are talking about right now, and
Yeah.
I see it over and over and over again. And there are very few people in our family, our community, for lack of a better description, that haven't got to that place at this point in time. There are people still who are afraid, who feel threatened, that they've been taken against their will, that the visitors have no right to do what they're doing. Um, but they're so caught up in fear and they're so caught up in what they feel is the destruction of their ego that they can't see it any other way. And of course, ego is another big part of this whole thing, is that human beings are so absorbed in their egos that they can't see the light of day.
Yeah, yeah. But that's why I think it's really important to share these experiences, but also understand how personal they are to our spiritual evolution. They,
Mm-hmm.
they are cues to help us understand our multidimensionality and to master that multidimensionality. And in the process of discovering, rather than staying in victim mode or limiting your belief
Yes.
that you are a victim, because the moment you identify with any one thing of this kind of phenomena, whether you're a victim or let's say you're just a Pleiadian or let's say you're an experiencer, your evolutionary process kind of dies there because you just get absorbed in that identification, and we are really extremely expansive beings. There's so much. That's just the tip of the little iceberg of a huge monument, that we actually need to discover and explore. We are infinite potential. And so the more we continue evolving with our experiences, the more we're going to understand and the less fearful we're going to become, because we're going to understand we're all in nothing simultaneously, and this is actually one of the most important parts of spiritual evolution. And the Egyptians, for example, and all the ancient civilizations talked about the power and the importance of learning how to become lucid in your dream state in order to prepare for death. Because in the same way that we experience little micro deaths every night when we leave the body in astral plane, we're doing the same at the time of death. And the sooner we learn how to become free will, to apply the free will, understand the mechanics and the laws of the universe for our creation, we're projecting into the experience, the more we can kind of direct these kinds of experiences and learn from them and grow in a harmonious manner rather than a state of helplessness, fear, limitation. Because, that's the narrative of control systems. If
Hmm.
you're ignorant, if you're afraid, it's very easy to control you, manipulate you. And there are government systems that do use that. They completely feed on that, especially in astral planes. So, so this is so the thing is, like, they're more informed than the populace. The populace is unfortunately still just learning their own technology. And so the invitation now, as we move into kind of a new era of AI and advanced technologies, look at your own technology. And those of you that are remembering your contact experiences, pay attention to what is most important in ET contact: telepathic development, mastery over life force and energy and matter. Matter is energy. It's all energy. This is why we can disintegrate into walls and move and glide. And it's not about gravity. It's not about this limited concept of physics. So we have to adapt to this new perception of this new way of seeing things. And that's an initiation that every human has to go through. And it can be a startling learning curve, but keep coming back to the basics, and it'll become more a gentle journey. That's the thing.
Yeah, so true. And what you say about dreams is true too. And I get comments from time to time on the channel where, you're just having dreams. And I'll question the person. I'll say, okay, define dream. They don't have an answer. I say, tell me what you know. Tell me, what are dreams?
Yeah.
And how do you know that something you're dreaming wasn't an actual experience that maybe was tucked away or subconscious? Or how do you know that that dream wasn't actually a conscious experience outside your body? And I've thought that for the longest time, that when we dream at night, um, that we are leaving our bodies and going to other worlds. Not only that, when my late wife passed, um, I remember very vividly coming to, and that's how I describe it, coming awake. I'm sitting at a dining room table in a house that looks really familiar, but it's not the house that we were living in, but it's decorated the same way. And it, the sink's over here, and things are different. The kitchen table is in the kitchen, and her daughter is sitting across from me, and I'm looking at Jilly, and she's washing dishes and talking away. And I look back over at Beth, and I said, "Your mom died. Don't you remember this? This doesn't make any sense." And I remember her saying, "What are you talking about? Mom didn't die. She's right there." And this went on for quite a while before Dummy here started to realize what was going on. And then I went with it.
Wow.
As you said, we're fragmented. We're all over the place.
Mhm.
Our consciousness is huge. And I also, one of the things and comments that really always disturbed me, I should have let it, but it did, not so much now, is that people would say, who would want to come here and see us? We're just nothing. We're just little small bugs. We don't mean anything. And it's like, how can you think that? Can't you? One of the things I've done since I was a kid is I could see past our galaxy, the Milky Way, past Andromeda, to all the other galaxies, and absolutely encompass the entire universe. And I can see it because I'm very visual, like I'm sitting in the middle of it looking around. And how does that make you small, having that ability? And at the time, I didn't understand that my consciousness actually expanded all that way and was
Exactly.
all that part of it because I was interconnected with every energy field and life form and consciousness out there. But we were told we weren't.
Right.
From day one, they immediately took away our power.
Yeah. 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 The indoctrination and the dream spell. Actually, we are more hypnotized than we are conscious. In our waking state, we are hypnotized psychologically, biochemically. We are hypnotized to be in a state of unconsciousness. So we pull towards the materialist perception, which is very finite. And that's why a lot of times these experiences are so traumatizing, because we have to break this concept of being finite, and the death being the end of everything. And that's a tough
Oh
one.
yeah.
I went through that too. When you go through these experiences, and you're asking these tough questions about the nature of reality, to understand that matter is not what you've been told it is, or that you even feel through your senses that it is. So you have to go beyond that, and there are higher faculties that are kind of developed as a result as well. Our intuition, our senses, our connection to our senses become more refined. As you know, all experiencers, they have heightened intuition,
Hmm.
many kind of abilities that as a result of these experiences. So it's not just a dream in that sense. It's a merging of the non-physical and the physical. It's the activation of those two realms, for humanity. So yeah, I think these experiences are extremely important. It's important to talk about them so that we can demystify them, and to begin the journey of self-educating ourselves on the ancient understanding of what we really are. There are certain laws of the universe in which we abide by. The Hermetic principles talked about the many ancient texts that we can refer to as guidelines and information for us, that are true today, and they are indisputable truths. And so yeah, it's beautiful, I think.
One of the things I've experienced being in this community, especially since we started breaking the silences, when I try to tell people that share, I try to share with them, not tell them. I don't tell them anything. I just share with you this. I had a near death experience with someone. I have studied near death experiences. I have read and listened to a lot of people who were channeled from the astral realm. Um, and there is this phenomenon we're experiencing with the visitors and that are related, if not one and the same. And they don't want to accept that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't understand it. And so, just recently, I had Simon Bown on the show. He's been on several times now, but he just released his new book, and near death experiences proven. He validates several cases, backs them up with facts that clearly show that these people uh, had no way of knowing what was going on when they were clinically dead, but yet they did anyway. Just to make the story short.
Hmm.
Uh, but as I'm reading these, it's the same subject.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then some of them even describe beings that are not human there. And in fact, if you really delve into it deeply, and I'm sure you know this, I'm just singing to the choir here, you'll see that the beings are there, even the grays, over and over,
Yeah.
because the level of consciousness that they're existing in right now is where we're heading.
Hmm. That's
And
right.
and people don't want to let go of this reality, this materialistic. They're hanging on to the ground like, no, no, I don't want to. They're scared to death.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
they've been told so many lies about having these abilities and having this experience that relate to evil things and demons and all that kind of stuff. But I'm really proud to see the community, such a huge percentage of them, standing their ground and saying, no, that's not correct. And this is the truth, not what they're trying to tell you. So I think that's what we're all trying to do.
That's right, 100%. I've experienced near death experience in 2018, towards the end of 2018, actually. And if anything, it reinforced and helped me understand a whole nother layer of contact, actually, because at the time of death, when I was entering into this field, I also saw beings. And what I discovered is that they were beings that had been with my family bloodline for centuries. These beings that they were tall white beings and blue beings, and these gray type of beings as well. And I have a lot of experiencers that have near death experiences as well, and they recognize these kinds of what we call them as aliens. I call them interdimensional beings. I don't use the word alien usually, um,
Hmm.
but they see these beings in their when they're crossing over, and it just helps us understand that there really is a construct, and what I perceive as the morphogenetic field. We're bioelectrical beings, and
Hmm.
our memory is bioelectrical. And so the more that we become conductive and that we become highly uh, centrifugal in the way that we're moving, because our entire field is a toroidal field,
Hmm.
we can take on many different geometric structural forms that help us navigate higher and higher dimensions. And you know the ETs and these these beings, these interdimensional beings, the way that they navigate interdimensionally is not through material technology. It's through organic
Oh
bio
yeah.
structures, and it's just very interesting because these near death experiences that I'm hearing from my experiencers, they speak to that because they realize that we have our own vessels. We are essentially our own vessels of navigation, just like these beings. I have many experiences with these grays that have instructed and showed me how geometrical structures create these kinds of lenticular vessels organically, which we're telepathically navigating. And on the other spectrum of that, the Draco reptilians use the same technology but inverted, using really low frequency energies to move their navigation of their technologies. So yeah, it's very interesting that these kinds of experiences, they open up our mind to concepts that we would never known are interconnected. But there is a technology, a new physics that we need to understand and learn through all of this. Not just about.
Actually, in old physics, it's been around longer than
You're right.
any of the physics that we have today, which is
Primitive.
constantly moving that direction because quantum mechanics was laughed at back in the early 80s. I remember it well, and of course now it's well established. So it takes us time. It really takes us time. I I get the distinct feeling, and always has since I was a child, that the visitors, uh, they were more like family than anything else. And we have to remember that just because they are different, I don't want to use the word more advanced, uh, but because they're different and because they can do the things they do, it doesn't mean that they don't have a spiritual uh, energy, a soul, uh, for lack of a better description, just like every one of us that
Mhm.
has an individuality to it and free free will. Because one of the shows we did was with Susan
Mhm.
Alloy, um, and that was the famous jackrabbit case where she was stopped in the middle of the road by a bunch of jackrabbits that turned into grays. Not something that's out of the usual, but one of the things that always grabbed me, um, when she sat in front of her camera and told her stories, she talked about how she was on board the craft and the gray was very close to her, and she asked if she could touch him. And it said, sure. I mean, telepathically. So she touched it, and then she smelled her hand, and she sort of recoiled and said, ooh, you're gross. And the being sort of, you could tell I was humored by it, and it said, what do you mean? I am you, and you are me. We are all the same. And I just think that that really sums it up right there. They are so comfortable and so natural. It's like, our comfort with getting in a car and driving it, to a Roman citizen 2,500 years ago that would completely be freaky and weird and strange, probably scare the death out of them. But they are very comfortable in their knowledge and their abilities, uh, based on everything we need to become ourselves, so that we stop making war and stop hating each other and stop having a world full of fear and anger and aggression. What I get from them all the time is that you're too aggressive, you're too violent, and we have to fix that in order
Exactly.
for you to survive. That's
Right.
the thus the hybrids. And what you said, I reflect back on again, is that we're all hybrids. Well, I did this piece of art. I don't know if you remember it, but there was a Neanderthal sitting inside of a gray ship, sitting on a metal table, and the
Yes.
gray is presenting him a human, a normal human baby that we would know today.
It's incredible, incredible piece. Incredible.
That piece, every time I look at it, and it was just there, and I had to draw it.
Yeah.
Uh, so this has been going on for a long time.
Yeah, that's so it's so interesting because after my near death experience, I had a couple things happen. First of all, I started to connect with holographic language systems, what people normally call light language.
Huh.
And I consider light language something a little different than what a lot of people present it as, but it's a holographic structure of language. And I started to see that after my near death experience. The second thing that happened, I had this insatiable feeling that I needed to paint. And I started to paint like crazy
Oh,
things
good.
that, yeah, things that I never even, I never knew that I could paint like that. So I started painting and I began to paint my experiences as well. And just like you, I have these downloads of images that are stuck in my head, and until I get it out, it just doesn't go away. So it's interesting. I think that we're kind of receiving information. I have a very strong connection with spheres and dots, and I kind of see molecules and universes and that in that way, spherical structures. That seems to be my language. And the other part that I wanted to speak to is that, with my research, working with different kinds of experiences from around the world, one thing that I discovered by interviewing families of contactees, and, doing an experiment with several families and asking to do hypnotherapy on all of the family members that were willing, what we found is that each of them had their own individual. They never talked about ET contact within their families. It's usually the one person that comes to me, and then I ask if it's okay to do the hypnotherapy on the family. But what I recovered over and over again with these families is that all the family members, even grandma, great grandma, was having contact experiences with, let's say, blue beings, and she would have all these experiences with blue beings. Then dad was having them, sister was having them, brother was having them, child, daughter, grandchild. The entire family had connections with these blue beings. They had many, many experiences, but the common thread was this blue being, and they all described it the same. So, literally, and this happened in many families that I worked with like this. It was just
Mhm.
incredible. So, essentially, it's helping us understand that we have ET contact is in our DNA. It passes ancestrally down our bloodline. And I believe contact is not something external, it's something internal. It's literally, we are having the contact from the inside out that for a lot of contactees that are waking up or becoming more spiritual or meditating, they activate DNA, which is the activation bioelectrically of that memory, of the storage of that memory. And that's where they start to recover the memory of these experiences. And they have more experiences usually after that. So, yeah, that was very interesting. There's another layer. This is a very complex thing. There's many layers to that also, depending on the country in which they're born. Their blood type plays a role in the kind of beings that they're interacting with mostly. And the continent in which they're born, their ancestral lineages, and any kind of indigenous cultures that say they seem to be connected to, whether it's in Europe or India or China or South America, American Indians. We have within these bloodlines also, like the Hopis, for example, or the Aymaras that connect with Pleiadians or Orion beings. These are passed down through the generations through these people that have never talked about ET contact before. They are experiencing it in their dream state. So yeah, I found that to be really fascinating. But I have an entire theory essentially based on that, on how we really are hybrids, and we are essentially holding within our genetic history the creation of more life, which is bringing more hybrid souls in, depending on what's necessary for human evolution. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I have indigenous blood on my father's side.
Oh yeah.
Black Blackfoot Indian, so
Oh, amazing.
as well as Irish. So that's a real mix right there.
That's, yeah.
Wow. Well, I could talk about this forever,
Yes, thank you.
but we've come up on our hour, which I've been trying to keep these shows to, and it's very very difficult. But I just want to thank you for taking the time to come on and tell your story. I mean, I didn't know it as well as I do now, and I really appreciate it. Uh, I feel like I'm getting so much out of this, and uh, I just wanted to express my appreciation to you for doing it. And we need to have you back sometime as well, because as everyone knows here, this just keeps evolving. It doesn't stop.
Yes.
It's not a drive-by abduction, and it's not abduction at all. So
Mhm.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve. It's an honor. I love your art. I love your work. You're incredible. Thank you
Oh,
so much for having me. It's been a
and
joy.
you betcha. Thank you.